Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Post-Military Podcast, where we share stories of veterans' transition out of the military and their advice to other service members based on their life experience. Whether you are still in service, a veteran, or just someone preparing to transition into a new chapter of your life, there is something here for you to learn. I've included timestamps in the description of the episode, so head down there to see if there are any topics that are of particular interest to you. Also, while you're poking around, subscribing to the channel or podcast on your favorite platform is always greatly appreciated. Anyway, thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Do solemnly swear
that
I will support and defend
the
Constitution of the United States
Constitution of the United States.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Post-Military Podcast, the podcast where we give you stories and experiences on transitioning from one chapter of your life to the next. With me today is someone that I'm very excited to have on. He is a very unique guest for this show in that he is still in active duty, but Josh White has an amazing platform. It is called the HeroFront Podcast. He is interviewing some amazing people on his show, talking about all manner of things. He's even had individuals that you've seen on this show, including Dan Horgan, talking about his story. And so Josh and I, we linked up and we wanted to talk. And it's actually fallen on a really amazing time because you might have seen it floating around LinkedIn, but if you've seen the Open to DoD Skill Bridge banner on LinkedIn, the creator is on screen with me right now. So,
took me all of 30 seconds, but it's a genius idea, I gotta say.
Listen, all of the most genius ideas are. He's got some amazing insights from his time in the Air Force and running his podcast. And I really wanted him to come on and talk through that and also just talk through his mindset as he prepares for transition. So first, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, Billy, I'm a big fan. I know a little bit about your story, and you've just been getting after it, man. And you've helped so many people like me who are scared for the first time in their career because it's the first time we've had an unknown as our future, right? You usually know your base. You're talking, you're Googling it. You know everything about where you're going. And then it kind of hit me the other day, like, it's like a void in my mind. Like, I don't know what it looks like. And so to talk to someone like you gives me hope.
I appreciate it, man. Someone said something really awesome in one of my episodes that's always resonated with me, which is like, when you get out of the military, you exit at your most informed point in the military. Like, you're at the peak of whatever your thing in the military's been. And so to go back to some semblance of square one after that is like scary for so many reasons. Like, it's like the rebuild, you don't know where the guardrail, all of those things. And so I love this show to be able to bring people on to talk through. Sometimes people haven't figured it out, but it's cool to just hear like, oh, someone else, like Josh isn't the only one who's like worried about this, because I think in the military we're so used to just being like, well, everyone around me's super professional and got it together, but I guess I'm the only one who doesn't, and I just think that it's ridiculous when you think about it, but in the moment it's so easy to be like, I'm the only one.
Right. No, that's it. Yeah, you're right. It does feel like that until you start talking to other people,
and then you're like, oh, good, I'm not insane.
Exactly.
But so for everyone who's listening, Josh and I have a really cool format that I'm excited about. This episode is going to be going up on my platform and on his. And so unlike most of my episodes where my guest is going to be doing a lot of talking, Josh and I want to have more of a back and forth, ask some really cool questions of each other, so that for all of you out there on the HeroFront space, hi, I'm Billy. It's nice to meet you. You're going to learn a little bit about me. And for everyone coming from my platform, this is Josh. He's super cool, and you're going to learn about him. So first question I want to ask you, Josh, is talk me through how HeroFront got started, because it's a pretty unique thing to get going as an active duty member of the military. Like, for those of you who are out there who are not in the military listening to this, the military isn't just giving out time for people to start their own podcast. So like this is pretty unique and I want to hear about this.
Nor do they like sharing your opinion to the public and on the internet.
For
right?
sure.
Um, like that is, 5 years ago, that was like insane, unheard of. And so I hate to give this one thing credit, but I got to say when I really thought about this, what truly opened the door initially, at least for airmen, was COVID. And it's because we were all put inside. We just got Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Bass, running all the enlisted. And she was a social media, I mean, she's incredible at it. She was one of the only leaders at that caliber that would express herself, highlight people like she. And so she was kind of the perfect person to roll in that hot seat for COVID because she was allowing us to communicate online, to express ourselves, to stay connected. And so I have to say, between COVID and our top enlisted leader of the Air Force normalizing it, that's kind of what, socially made it okay. And then as far as like my own journey and purpose here, I went my whole life or my whole adult life drinking, hating myself, and day by day kind of, losing sight of my purpose and just wanting to not be alive to the point where I almost did die. And, I think about that person, Airman White on the flight line who had no mentor. I didn't have a podcast to listen to. I didn't have internet on my phone, and I was struggling to find answers as to why I felt the way I felt. It was also insane to like say you have mental health problems at that point in the military. So like I just kept it to myself, and luckily I'm still alive today. There's some that aren't, which is unfortunate. But I got to say, like at the core of why I started it, it's trying to reach people like me when I felt like I had no answers and no one to talk to, and I was getting worse day by day. I'm trying to reach that person ultimately. And then another reason that I got it started was from Honor Guard military funeral honors. I had to keep this team positive. We're doing active duty funerals. It's a pretty dark career. It's very incredible and rewarding, but it's emotionally very tough. And I saw the power of like highlighting teammates with just time. That's really it. I would take the time to get to know them, take a professional photo of them, and tell their story online. And I saw the family members just sharing it like crazy. And a lot of these airmen, that was the first time anyone had told them something nice about them, like ever. Like they didn't even know how to respond to it. So to see them kind of like, oh yeah, like I am good at something, like, to see that light bulb go off, that they started to believe in themselves just from this simple act, I knew I was onto something there. And then by the time I got here to Eglin 3 years ago, because I wasn't in Honor Guard anymore, I wanted something I could keep forever. And that's ultimately when I decided to start HeroFront.
That's awesome. And
that was a long answer. So
no, I love it. I think that highlighting the mental health struggle that people go through in the military is, it's very in line with why I started my podcast, which was to reach, to just like we said right at the start, I struggled a lot with my transition. It happened in a manner that was very sudden, and I was not prepared for it at all. And the whole time I felt like I was well behind the curve on my entire transition, and I didn't have anybody like I had a lot of people help me get a job, but I wasn't asking the right questions, and I wasn't getting the mental health assistance that I needed because I didn't think that it would be a big deal. And so once I started talking to some people about it, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I went through this too." And I go, "Oh, okay. We just need to highlight this for people." And that's what inspired me to start the podcast. So your reasoning resonates with me, and I know resonates with my audience because we love talking about the mental side of these hard things that we do inside and out of the military. So
yeah, and you kind of reminded me of something else. people not talking about it. Like you said, you saw a need for it because it wasn't talked about enough.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was going through that, I didn't, you know, I wasn't made for maintenance. I ended up retraining
Mm-hmm.
into medical. But, at the time I was maintenance and I didn't look like my bosses. I didn't sound like my bosses. So, like, they seemed like they had everything figured out. And this was a time where no one shared something negative about themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that further drove me down because not only do I not look like them or sound like these successful people, but they've got it all together. And here I
Mm-hmm.
am falling apart. And so I agree with you on the importance of sharing it to avoid that thought process right there.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I want to ask you one follow up, and then I'll open it up for you to ask your first question. What was what was the learning process like for you when it comes to putting out your show? What, like, from the editing, the filming, like what was that learning process for you like?
It was brutal, man. Because like I overthink things and I get caught up on little details, sometimes little things can snag me if I can't quite completely understand it. I'll be stuck on something and obsess over it until I can figure out like this one little step and why it's not working. But I will give my wife credit. She knows that I go way too deep into things that I like to do. And I wanted to start before I left Whiteman Air Force Base. And she said, no, like for once, you're going to research, like for once in your life. And I kind of had no choice because we're moving. So, like, I ended up having to pack all my stuff. I planned out the podcast and researched it for at least 3 months before I started. And I would say that helped tremendously with like at least what equipment I wanted, what computer I wanted, any sort of software, etc. And that got my foot in the door. That got me at least on Apple Podcast and sounding decent. Right. The hard part was when I started using like video for everything, wanting to make clips, wanting to make highlight reels, like the creativity behind it is almost kind of like side of you comes out and you have this vision and you want to try to make that happen. And through that process, there's a lot of trial and error, but man, it's an artistic release for me at this point. Like the video editing, highlighting people, capturing their story in a way that they want everyone to see it. It's definitely worth the time. And the biggest tip I have for that is don't go for perfection, go for consistency. If you go for perfection, which I initially did, you will never make it. You will burn out. And to be honest, you don't even need to be perfect to be successful. Like it doesn't need to be perfect, right? But you want it to be because you're showing it to the world, right? But is whatever it takes to be consistent, whether that's once a week or once a month, that consistency is going to take you farther than trying to make a perfect product.
I love that. I think that that's great advice, not just for people who are looking to possibly start podcasts, start putting out content, but for really anything that people are trying in the next phase of their life or just in general, because I think too many people get hung up on the idea that they have to be really, really good at something right away. And so then they never do it because they like try. And as you can attest to, and as I can certainly attest to, my first couple of episodes sucked. And you just look back on it and you go, man, I was not good at this 50 episodes ago.
Yeah, it is nice to know there's a difference though, right?
Yeah, there really is.
Who was your first guest?
So my first guest, his name's Dylan. And Dylan is a guy that I know locally here in California. My wife is still active duty. She she moved out to Travis Air Force Base. And so we live just north of the base. And I met this guy at a CrossFit gym. He is a Navy special operator who got out, and we both ended up moving here because of our significant others. And we're just talking about life working as a remote tech worker, and I vibe with him a lot, and I thought it would be a a really good first guest because he knew me. He'd been shot at, so like nothing crazy. Like he wasn't. I knew he'd be a fun dude to talk to, and I knew he had a good story. So first, that was the first guy, and a lot of my first couple of episodes were just people that I'd either gone to school with or people that I knew really, really well. And I really used them to start dialing in my interview style before I started like cold calling people on, hey, your story's sick. You want to come on to the show?
Right.
Yeah.
Which surprisingly works sometimes with like
It,
the people you'd
yeah.
have no business talking to.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talked about this earlier with your airmen just being like high, like people loved when you highlighted them, and I'm sure that they did too. With and I think that so many like the transition process is such a unique thing to each veteran, and it's a very spiritual, emotional, every aspect of you as a person goes through some kind of change at some point in the transition process, whether you realize it or not. And very few people, because there's such a small veteran population in America, very few people are going to walk up to someone and understand how weird that was for them and also have the time to go, tell me about this. And like you said at the front, people like to talk about this stuff because I think it validates the experience. Like if I can share some nugget of wisdom from like my 2 years of suck, then it was worth it, hopefully. Or at least it makes it somewhat worth it. That's what I think.
Yeah, man, that is spot on. So during this process, how long have you been doing this?
It will be a year at the end of March.
So you're coming up on your first year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Most don't make it that far.
Yeah.
It's like a crazy, statistic of like who stuck with it. It's like 1%, or it's something crazy low.
I can't remember. Someone sent me the stats early on, but it was like the vast majority of podcasts don't make it to episode 5, and like some crazy number don't make it past, like some really small number don't make it past like episode 20, whatever. And then it's like, I think you're in the single digits once you get to 52. I think is like you're definitely under 10% of podcasts make it to 52 episodes. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I was curious, like you heard me talk about why I started HeroFront, like the person I'm trying to ultimately reach and why. I'm kind of curious, like I know who you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
But why is that so important to you? What happened to you personally that you've taken this mission on?
Yeah. So my story really quick. I went to the United States Air Force Academy. Prior to that, my family had moved a lot. We weren't military. I'm first generation. We just moved around a lot for my dad's work. And so I never really felt like I had an established identity until I joined the Air Force, went to the Air Force Academy, and I bought into the military identity hard. Like it was.
You were at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, I mean,
that's like the poster child for being bought in.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure. Like it was all of my friends that I graduated high school with were partying at fill in the blank state school, and I was waking up at 6 a.m. to march to breakfast. And it really clicked for me my junior year of school when they put us in charge of people. Like that's when I was like, oh, this is what this is all about. I never really had any interest in flying. And once they put me as a junior in charge of sophomores and freshmen, I was like, oh, this leadership thing's interesting. Like I can take care of, like, I now have the ability to make people under me's lives better.
You can shape their experience now.
Exactly. Like, and I had some experiences where I messed that up, and that was very impactful for me. And I had some experiences where I made it really, really good for people. And so I entered the Air Force in cyber warfare, really stoked to be part of this thing. And I loved it. I love being in the military. It was the only thing that I really knew. And if you would have asked me at any day in my career, you'd been like, Billy, what are the plans? I would have said I'm making it to 20, and then I'll figure it out after that. Maybe I'll go further. And then met my wife, who's also in the military, so we were going to do that dual mil life all the way up until the bitter end. But my wife deployed in 2021. She deployed in 2020, and then January of 2021, on the 26th, I had a stroke on the toilet, and then I was medically discharged from the military a year later. And so that was a very hard pivot into a life that I had never even envisioned for myself. And it was a roller coaster of emotions from the second the doc walked into my hospital room, was like, hey man, like, you should probably start thinking about what's next. Cause like, we don't know what happened. We're trying to figure this out. And so I dove hard into the transition. I truly hate unknowns. It's one of the big reasons I love the military. I love how managed everything was for me. Like I really didn't have to worry about too many things.
They make sure you're prepared for each step.
Exactly. And you know what's coming. Like in 3 years, I'm going to move. I don't know where, but I have a list and I know I'm going to go somewhere. Like there's always certainty. And then all of a sudden there was complete uncertainty, kind of what you talked about at the beginning. And so I dove into the transition, and the Billy of then was like, if I get a good job, because I'm in cyber and everyone talks about getting all of the money when they get out, and if I get my VA stuff taken care of, I will have successfully transitioned. That's what I thought at the time, and that was very wrong. That was a horrible.
People still tell me that, though. I mean, that's
still
yeah.
Yeah, it's like those are things that are good, but they're not the thing, like, to be completely blunt, they're not the things you're going to kill yourself over. And so I had to go through a significant amount of soul searching after I exited the military, January 31st of 2022. And a year later, I realized, like, oh man, I really got this. I was asking all of the wrong questions. And that's when I decided to start the podcast, because I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy the stories. I think that all of this, getting the chance to interact with folks like you are amazing. And I just wanted to help in some way, shape, or form change the narrative to getting a job is great. You deserve to get paid. You've served your country well. It is important for you to take care of your family and yourself in the next chapter. Getting your VA benefits is fantastic. You deserve them. It's not a zero-sum game. Do what you got to do to get your money, and those two things are fantastic. They're also not the foundation of what's going to keep you sane in the next chapter of your life. They're not going to be the things that keep you happy. They're not going to be the things that are going to, like, cure you of your anxiety or whatever you're going to feel in this next chapter of your life. They're important, but they're not the foundation. And I wanted to have a discussion about the foundation with as many people as possible. And that's how I started the podcast.
Man, I didn't realize you were in not too long ago.
No, I've only been in. Yep. It'll be my 2-year anniversary at the end of this month.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's not that long ago at all.
Nope.
But when you did get out, how long were you in total at that point?
If you count my academy time, 10 years. If you don't, 6. So
no, I do count it.
Yeah.
Because wow, 10 years. That's about the worst time that could happen too. Because like that's the point where you probably were all in.
I was all in the entire time. To be completely clear, like I never considered a life outside of the military once until everything came. Until I like got knocked hard into next week by life, and so that very much so was new to me. And yeah, that was like I was 20. I was a rider. Like they were like, hey man, do you want to switch from high 3 to the blended retirement system? I was like, not a chance. I'm making it to 20 years. Right. And I was that kind of guy.
That's heartbreaking to hear, because there's so many people who squander it. And then we come across someone like you who could have done amazing things. And because of an unfortunate health issue, you're not in that spot. So the health issue, the stroke, Was that a super obvious event, or I heard sometimes those can be kind of subtle?
Oh, it was very obvious. I I was on the toilet, and then the right side of my body stopped moving, and I fell off said toilet and had to use Siri to call for help. And then I
Oh
had
my
a
God.
yeah, so that's I knew I knew what it was immediately. And the yeah, that kicked off 6 days in the hospital trying to diagnose, and then many appointments after that trying to figure out what had caused it. They never found out, and because they never found out, I was no longer a deployable asset, because it's like this dude could literally die in
Right.
Afghanistan or fill in the blank country. And so yeah, they were like, time to start the medical board, and
So
that
to this
ran its
day,
course.
you don't know. To this day, you don't know why that happened.
Nope,
Do you
never
have a
figured it
hunch?
out. No. My I would have told you it was COVID, because like people in my age demographic got COVID and got showed signs of clots. But after they did the tests, like I got COVID tested a ton because I worked at Air Education and Training Command at the time, so we were rather strict on those things, and so I never popped positive for COVID. So I have no idea, to be quite honest
Wow.
with you. Yeah,
I'm just glad that you're still here, man. I mean,
I
that's
appreciate it.
that's what's important.
Yeah,
The service thing that sucks, but the fact that you're here and you found a way to still make a tremendous impact
yeah,
and stay
and
connected.
something that we can dive into later is, it honestly was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Now, I can say that with some pretty strong certainty, based off of the growth that I've had to experience since then. And I want to, and we can dive into that now, but I don't want this to be you just asking me a bunch of questions. So I want to ask you though, I am certainly not the wildest story that you have heard doing your podcast. And for you, what would you say what have been some really impactful moments that you've experienced in your time talking to airmen, veterans, servicemen, service women? Like what are some things that have really stood out to you in your time? And I know if you go on HeroFront podcast, Josh has like 7 pages of episodes that in each page is like, I'm gonna say like 20 episodes. So you've been around the block for a little bit. So this
Mhm.
might be a hard question, but what's really stuck out to you?
Yeah, the one that was the hardest for me was definitely Senior Master Sergeant Tawanda Griffin Greer, because this was the first sergeant in the Air Force who was part of an active shooter event where her commander was murdered in front of her. And she was a first sergeant, and this is like a myth I've always heard in the military. Like it's like an urban legend, right? Like shirts, like one of the tricks shirts do before the airman sees the commander for like something negative is they say, "Hey, well, I want to make sure you have your belt on," like in their service dress blues, and they make them lift their shirt to see if their belt's on. But that's actually to see if they have a weapon, and that all stems from this urban legend,
One
this
thing.
myth.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
and to actually find that person and like legitimately hear what happened, that she was at gunpoint, she had to call the commander in, and him get blasted right in front of her, and then she had to run for her freaking life, and everyone thought it was a drill and we didn't believe it. And then it's heartbreaking to hear like the attacks that she got afterwards, like, oh, she's a coward, she should have punched the guy, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like, that is probably the most terrifying situation you could ever find yourself in. So for anyone to criticize her is just terrible. And man, I just felt it was hard to hear. It was hard to listen to, but I'll tell you why I appreciate it. It's because I felt the healing during the talk. One, because she's able to tell the story now, right? There's a lot of healing in just finding the words, but also because like she's being heard by an active duty member. Her story's being shared by her community that she left behind and on bad terms, right? And then she felt more welcomed and more accepted. And to be a part of that, I was really proud of. But some of the ones that also stick with me are some of the earliest ones, like Tech Sergeant Jeremy Rutherford. His best friend he was my honor guard teammate, and probably the most intelligent airman I've ever met in my life. The guy can like code and build websites. I mean, he's just a freaking genius. And all of my success in honor guard, most of it is because of him. I'm not even gonna lie. Um, but you know, his brother was his best friend. They had all these plans, all this plans together and what they were going to do with their life together. They came from this really big family, kind of an abusive family that was very strict on religion. And so him and this younger brother really bonded and separated from that and were going to do their own thing. But one day he came home and found his brother passed away because he ended his life. And, you know, to have all those plans to be your best friend and your younger brother, I mean, it was absolutely soul crushing. And he couldn't even put it into words when I first met him, because we would share stories like that with the honor guard team to show you like what death or suicide, the impact that leaves on these families. So like we felt it would be important to share that since they're so young and they might not have experienced it. We wanted them to be empathetic, and we wanted to hear, you know, let them see into our lives. And the first time he told the story, he just like he couldn't even get the words out. But 2 years later, on that last class, he was able to tell that story and really impact everyone in the room. And I was super proud of him. And he came on and he talked about that. And then lastly, I'll just give a shout out to Blythe Cooley, Master Sergeant Blythe Cooley. She tried to take her own life as an airman over a boyfriend who like cheated on her. The boyfriend like found her and is ironically the one that like took her to the hospital. But just the way she was able to tell that story was just like, it just hit, man. The way she told that story was masterful, in my opinion. It's just absolutely masterful. And now she's a first sergeant, and her job is to watch over airmen. Like that's her sole job. And it's a pretty inspiring story for someone who wanted to end their life, tried to. Flash forward to now, she's a senior NCO and a first sergeant protecting airmen. I can't think of anyone better than her at that.
That's amazing. And it's as you've had a lot of conversations with people who have worked through, dealt with, or might still be dealing with these different mental health issues or these traumatic events. And for my audience, these are people that are generally veterans that are interacting with other veterans that might not have had a chance to unpackage these things that you talk to people about regularly. So what advice would you give to listeners on how to have healthy conversations about these things with people in a way that is healing to them? Because I think that it's a hard thing. It's such a delicate subject. And I think that a lot of people are really uncomfortable talking to others and hearing those stories. Like even you mentioning right now, I'm kind of like, oh man, like that would be a tough thing to hear as a podcast host. So what advice would you give on that subject?
It's probably not what you think. Truly, what empowered me the most was finally feeling comfortable in my own skin. When I told you I was drinking and didn't want to live anymore, that went on for about 10 years. And I've never been more insecure and shaky and nervous and full of anxiety than when I was drinking. You know, ironically, I thought it made me social. And I guess it did while I was just, you know, completely blitzed. But in reality, it was holding me back from everything. It puts all your growth on pause. I could never really grow. I was still that kid. You know, 10 years later, I was still that kid who left for basic training, who was insecure and terrified of everything. I was still that kid because I put my growth on pause. So I honestly couldn't even talk to people like seriously at all. Like I would make a joke or, you know, I couldn't even have a serious conversation because like I wouldn't allow myself to feel that way. because I was not even comfortable with myself. I hated myself. Why would anyone want to listen to me? You know? So I would say truly what's helped me the most was taking the time to first work on myself and earn respect for myself and be comfortable in my own skin, which is something you have to fight for and figure out. You know, when you're a kid, it can be a lot easier, but as you navigate your adulthood, you know, to be that person that you're self-aware, you're confident, you have to earn that stuff. And when I finally did was when I was most effective at navigating, like, helping other people's lives.
That makes sense. And how do you think you started that process of becoming comfortable in your own skin? Because it's something that you hear a lot of people say, but I also think that it is difficult for people to do. And I think this is so important because I think it applies a lot to people once they get out of the military.
Yeah, man, that's a long story, but I'll try to make it not long. So I'd say the first step I took was I accepted friendship and help.
Mm,
Okay, because I was at my worst. Because I didn't stop drinking after that heart virus where I almost died and I was in the hospital. I had a heart virus, myocarditis, was in the hospital for weeks. My dad came out. You know, I could have not made it. That wasn't
yeah.
my rock bottom. I continued because I went back to the same Josh, to the same problems. I
Mm,
still was the same person looking in the mirror. So I thought I would turn my life around from that. And I was very disappointed and hated myself
it's,
more when I couldn't stop the drinking and hating it just continued, just
yeah.
picked right back up.
It's like that scene in The Dirt where oh my gosh, what's his name? The lead singer of Motley Crue like ODs on heroin. They
Yeah.
bring him back and then he goes back and does more heroin.
Yes.
It's just and you're like, what is happening right
Was it
now?
Nikki Sixx that did that?
Yeah, it was Nikki Sixx. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he literally died. They announced that he died on
Yeah.
television.
Yeah. And then he came back and then
and
got
which
high.
is like a miracle. And then he does it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's reality though. And I'll tell you, I had it all wrong. You know, I was waiting for something so negative, so traumatic that I was forced to turn my life around or
Mm.
go to rehab or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, what actually fixed it was love, friendship, vulnerability, trust. It was all the good things that fixed it, not anything negative to turn it around. But I first accepted help. So I had a few new guys in my shop. They kept bugging me to go out, kept bugging me. You got to come out with us. You got to come out with us. I wasn't used to people inviting me places. And I was a gamer at the time. So it was really easy to stay home. I was a pro Halo 3 player.
Oh shoot, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. Not a healthy sport, but it was a good time.
Uh-huh.
And so I finally said yes. I finally said, you know what? They're not going to let this go. I'm just going to go. They just opened a new movie theater in Warrensburg, and this is a base in the middle of Missouri. Not a lot of things to do. So this new movie theater was a big deal, right? So I'm like, okay, it's a new movie theater. I'm going to go with these dudes. And I go with them, and that's the first time I see my now wife,
Mm,
right?
that's cool.
Had I not said yes, I never would have met my now wife.
That's
It's
crazy.
almost like fate or something,
Yeah.
you know, but it all started with accepting that help, accepting the friendship that was extended to me. And it was just baby steps. It wasn't overnight. It was physical fitness, you know, things that I was afraid of. I started doing. I was afraid to go to school. I had ADHD in school. I was told I was like retarded. Like back then, if you had ADHD, like you were retarded. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't like it is now. It was like a really negative thing back then. So I was always told I was just a dumbass, and like people just gave up on me, and that really hurt my confidence with school, you know? So like I was terrified to even try college. So like I started doing things out of my comfort zone little by little. I learned how to sign up for a class. Like those little steps went a long way.
Mm,
And it all culminated when I got done. You know, I was in military funeral honors. This is years later, many baby steps later. And I won my first award, like a wing level award. It was like, I didn't just win, like it went all the way up. And when I went out that night with my wife. I planned on getting completely hammered because, you know, when you're drinking, you're looking for any reason, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time in my life, didn't feel like escaping. First time in my life, I was proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a water instead, which really even surprised me. This was like 6 years ago. And from that day till now, I've never drank again.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I don't even know what your question was. I just went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the rabbit hole. I just wanted to know how you become comfortable in your own skin. And I love what you just said there, because I think something people need to hear over and over and over and over again is it takes time, and it's small things over a long period of time dig you out of these mental health graves that we've dug for ourselves. And I think especially people in the military, we're used to things happening in these like PCS windows of like 2 to 3 years. And so everything's got to go quick. And I think as Americans stack that on top of it because we're just like a fixed now society. And so then people never go down these paths of improvement for mental health, because the answer people don't want to hear is like, it's going to suck. It's going to take a long time, and you're going to need to find satisfaction in just the smallest of improvements. Going to a movie theater with friends, getting a water instead of getting a beer, like these like really small things. And it's like, you were able to find victory in those things and build upon them. But I think that's such a hard thing for people to hear. And it needs to be said constantly, because in the moment I think it's so hard for people to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're looking for a shortcut or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, I knew my problem all along. It was drinking. But I tried to fix everything around that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm going to take multivitamins. I'm going to only drink on the way. I was just masking the true problem that I just could not let go of. And yes, it does take baby steps, but I will say it definitely builds momentum. So if you stick with it, that pace will eventually get much faster, and the success will come much quicker. You just have to trust the process until you build that momentum.
I could not agree more. Do you still play video games? Before you ask your next question, I just want to know, because I play video games, and I just want to know if you rock people on first-person shooters still.
So I will not play first-person shooters.
Okay.
Just like I stopped drinking, I'm not even going to go there. So I was like a top 20 Halo 3 player. I held records of like top winning streak, you know, which was like in the 800s. like montages. I was featured on Bungie. Like, I mean, it was a real deal, man. It was fun. It was a good time. And then I started, my hand-eye coordination started dropping ever so slightly. So I couldn't hang in that. The younger kids just came in and just couldn't hang with that anymore. So I switched to Call of Duty, which I think is a little bit easier, and I started smoking people in that too, man. Like, I started like, it was crazy. It was so much fun, but I kind of associate it with the drinking and the addiction part of my brain.
Oh, so for sure.
Now I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, 6-year-old daughter, 4-year-old son. They've got the gamer gene. Like, they're shockingly good at it, right? It's really cool to see. But I only will play Nintendo with them. I'll only play Mario Kart, and it's a great excuse to revisit those games.
Oh, for sure.
You know, I'm playing they love the old Mario. Like, they'll play the Super Nintendo Mario. They're fascinated by it. Like, that's cool. And how far the games have come. Like, they appreciate that already. And to be able to revisit those games, and I mean, it's so trippy to see my kids like playing the games I played as a kid. It's freaking mind blowing, man.
That's awesome. I love it. My wife is due in March with our first kid. So,
holy cow, man.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. And I game, and my wife is just like, she's just like, dear God, don't let this girl be into video games like her dad. And I'm like, let her be into video games like her dad.
Yeah, my
So,
daughter, my daughter's so good. I'm like, she could, and she's really cute. So I'm just like, dude, she could be a millionaire from just anything, gaming,
yeah,
whatever. Like,
exactly.
she starts now, she'll be freaking
Yeah.
killing it. And my wife's like, I could never live with same thing. My wife's like, I could never live with myself. You're not going to make her a gamer. Gaming is like kryptonite to girls, man. To like most girlfriends and wives.
Right.
It's kryptonite, bro.
Yes, it really is. I have to ration it and all of that. So I'm glad you understand. But no,
I understand.
But I completely also understand like I have to be really, really careful with how I ration out my time on gaming, because otherwise I'll do literally nothing else. I'll just be like,
Are you into first person shooters?
Man, I play everything. I like FPSs, but my meat and potatoes. When I was growing up, my family like lived out in the boons and we didn't have good internet, so I missed a lot of like. I would go over to my friend's house to play Halo 3, to play Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like all that stuff. At my house, because we didn't have a good internet connection, it was all single player offline games, and so I cut my teeth on like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Mass Effect, like all of the RPG story-driven games. And so that's where all of my passion is when it comes to gaming. I love it's by far and away my favorite medium to experience a story, just because of the interactivity. And that's what I really like to dive into. The problem with that is those games are like 100 hours long. And
they're too good. Like,
yeah,
I remember playing Resident Evil 2, and that was super fun, but like it doesn't even compare to like God of War. Like,
oh my gosh,
they make them too good for our human brains. Like,
it's amazing. It's amazing. It's
I heard something super fascinating about first person shooters and the people that are
Mm-hmm.
addicted to them. They looked at their brains. This is like a study in England, and the addictive part comes from the hunter gatherer in males.
Oh, interesting.
Because you're communicating and you're hunting that other team, and you're communicating with your team to outsmart them and hunt them, and it brings out that primitive hunter gatherer.
I mean, I believe it. I had a moment. I had a time in my life when Fortnite was big, and I played it way too much. My wife yelled at me a ton because she's a nurse in the Air Force, and so she would be trying to sleep after a 12-hour shift, and I would be way too loud with my friends because we would win like 3 in a row, and I would lose my mind, and then she would storm downstairs and be like, "Shut up!" And
dude, that's a bad day right there.
It is. The time she yelled at me the worst, it was so loud, my mic on my headset picked it up, and her little brother was playing with me, and so he was like, "Hey man, do you need to go to bed?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I need to go. I think I need to get off."
He's probably seen that side a few times growing up, so he's like,
sure.
He's like, knew.
Hey, wrap it up. Wrap it up and pack it up.
He's like, I'm going to do you a favor and we're getting off.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. But yeah, so Fortnite, super into gaming. Honestly, it was my greatest asset as a CGO in cyber warfare in the Air Force, because if I ever needed to like really endear myself to the airmen, I'd be like, "What are you playing?" And they would go, "I'm playing fill in the blank game." And I would go, "That's a sick game. This is what I'm playing." And then we would chop it up for a while. And I had this major who I worked for come up to me when I was a second lieutenant. He was like, "Why do the airmen always bring their problems to you and not me?" And I go, "Well, sir, I know what Fortnite is and you don't." And you said video games are stupid, right? So they don't like you as much as they like me.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Air Force gaming exists, which I'm super jealous of. I tried to create that when I was an airman, because the team I was on was called Team Departing Sin. It was 3 airmen and a Marine, and we started at Kadena in Okinawa, and we held the win streak to this day, the biggest win streak in Halo 3. And, Air Force Times wanted to do an article on us, and I tried to basically make Air Force gaming at that time, but I was a goofball. I didn't know what the hell to do. But since then, it has been made. I've met them, and I'm like, you little jerks, like
right.
You got Air Force gaming, bro. I got made fun of for this, bro.
Yeah.
Like
back when it was hard.
Right. Like I grew
I
up
get
in
it. Yeah.
I'm super jealous of it, but I'm also super happy for him because it's basically, putting these people together and building that community. And
It's sick.
I know how it helped me, through the hard times. So I'm really glad that it exists.
I completely agree. That's cool. It's cool to get to talk to a guy who's so skilled at shooters at one point. That's really, really cool.
The
So,
montage was deleted, but I contacted the guy who made it. He works in like Hollywood movies now,
uh-huh.
and he still had it. He still had the file. So I re-uploaded it. So if you search Team Departing Sin on YouTube, you will
Mhm.
see my old team montage that was on Bungie, that was featured on Bungie.
Oh my gosh, that's sick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look this up
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
we're done
You
here.
gotta
So,
watch it. It's like that classic, like Linkin Park, like
oh my gosh,
like
I
no
love this.
scopes.
I love it.
It's the
I love it.
classic old school montage. You're gonna really
Oh my
appreciate it.
Hey, I definitely will. So I will hand the mic back to you for the next question.
Well, you were going to elaborate more on your story, and then you stopped because you wanted to pass it back to me.
Yes, I did. And
I want your audience to know you. I want them to know a different side of you. So whatever that was, my question is, what was that? Can you talk about that?
yeah, of course. The piece that I wanted to talk about is that I was leading into was I'm at a place now where I'm able to look at what happened to me 2 years ago, and I guess 3 years ago now, and I can honestly say it was probably one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. And here's why. It revealed things to me in my life that I needed to fix, and the results of that I think have been really life-changing for me. And it's something that I'm trying to push with the podcast and with my platform. And what that was is the military does a really, as an organization, our mission is phenomenal. Within the defense of the nation mission that exists, there's also just amazing opportunities to care for people, do things like you're doing right now with the podcast. And I mean, as a senior NCO, and for me as an officer, like the opportunities to improve people's lives it's really unmatched. Like like there's not a lot of opportunities where you get to do all of those amazing purpose-filled things
Mm-hmm.
in your life elsewhere. And so, but with that, if you join the military right out of high school, right out of college, like I did, or like you did, is we start to blend purpose and our job. Purpose and our job suddenly become one and the same thing, because they are. Like, I was a cyber warfare officer who also got to lead people, take care of them, and do all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, when I was getting out of the military, and this is what I believe, I think a lot of people go, I need a job that has the same purpose attached to it as what I had in the military. And I think that
That's
the
me
things
right
that,
now, for the record.
yeah, and so this is going to be this will be my then counterpoint to maybe challenge your thinking a little bit. I think that in a perfect world, a job is a means by which it can provide interest. It can be a thing that gives you problems you enjoy solving, which is awesome. But it can be, and probably should be, almost completely separate from the things that give you purpose and value in your life. And what do I mean by that? As I've gone through this, I've realized that the things that give me, like, who am I as a person? Like, who am I, Billy, without the Air Force? That's really the journey that I've had to go on. And it's realizing things like, I want to pull my value from being a good husband as I prepare for my first daughter to show up. Like, I'm going to pull value from being a good father. And I have a core set of beliefs and like tenets, for lack of a better term, that I want to underpin who I am as a person. I love teaching. I love educating. I love helping people in need. These are all like, if you pull up my Myers-Briggs, just like basically take what they say about that. And like, that's my core identity. However, how I exercise those core identity things aren't necessarily my job. Like I work remote as a cybersecurity consultant. I'm not leading anybody. I'm not teaching people anything. I show up, I build solutions for clients, and it's great. Why is it great? Because it allows me to exercise all of those things that make me me in other areas of my life, whether it's my church community that I'm a part of, whether it's with my wife. I work from home, so I'll get to be around my daughter, and everything else that's not my job fills up my cup. And my job provides me with enough money to enable to like provide for my family. And that is what I believe is a very healthy end state. You can certainly have a job that allows you to emphasize parts of yourself, but the job shouldn't be feeding the foundation. The foundation should possibly feed the job, but not vice versa.
Because the military is so unusual and it's not going to be replicated elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's like the military's the things that you have, the things that you love about the military can be separated from the military, but you might never have thought about it that way. Like the things that you're doing for HeroFront, or the things that you were doing when you were leading your troops with Honor Guard, or what you're doing right now, like those are all things that can be separated from the military. You just have to realize that they're not necessarily tied to the military. Because is your AFSC still, I looked it up on LinkedIn, are you still public health? Is that still like technically your job? Like you're technically your AFSC?
It is.
So it would be like if you said, I have to go into public health because going into public health will allow me to do a podcast and take care of people and all these things. Like you can take care of people and have a podcast and all these other things regardless of your job. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, the job and the passion are so intertwined that they think that the job is what provides them happiness, when a job's just a job, man. And you're going to have a lot of them out here. And in my opinion, if you put too much value in your job, you're taking a lot of control in your emotions, your well-being, your sense of self-worth, and you're putting it in the hands of a capitalist company that'll fire you the second that they need to like bump up the stock prices. And that's not bad. I mean, some people think it's bad. I don't necessarily think it's wrong, but I do think what's wrong is if I work for Amazon, it would be really bad if I really identified with that Amazonian part of me, because they've laid off a lot of people recently. And if they did it again and I'm one of those people, then it's like I'm allowing Amazon to affect my self-worth, because it's like I'm an Amazonian. Well, now you're not. You got arbitrarily fired because they needed to cut costs. And it's like, I'm leaving myself open for some damage there.
It's all temporary. So
yeah,
it's going to end one way or another.
Yeah. I just think grounding your identity in things that transcend chapters of life lead to a more fulfilled existence, for lack of a better term. And jobs generally only persist from one chapter of your life to the other, including the military. Like at some point, everyone's going to leave the military, and if you stake a ton of your identity in the military, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like there's way worse things you can stake your identity on than service to your nation, service to your brothers and sisters in uniform. Like these are all noble things, and they should be held in high regard, but they should also be treated as if like at some point it's gonna end, and it's gonna be something that creates who you are in the next chapter, but it shouldn't be relied upon to be the fountain of happiness and value, because of like the further you get away from, like if the military was still the core of my identity, every day I get further and further away from that, and I run into more and more people who don't care, and like it's that's not wrong, that's not on them, it's not on me, it's just the military was an amazing chapter of my life. I'm very much so the person a lot of who I am is because of that moment, of that 10 years of my life. And I'm so unbelievably grateful that I was able to serve in that capacity and do all of that. But now who I am as a person and what I pull value and happiness from is certainly not the military anymore, and it certainly is not my job. I looked for value in my work the second I got out of the military, and it was not great for me. And yeah, that's kind of where I've arrived now, and I'm very happy that I went through that, because I would have had to deal with that at some point in my life anyway. And the stroke just allowed me to have to grapple with it in a more extreme manner. And so everything came out, and it was like, oh man, I saw it very clearly, versus if I had just retired or aged out, I don't know if I would have seen it as clearly, and it would have probably been a much longer journey for me than what it was, or still
man.
is, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, everything you said was gold. I really appreciate it as someone that's going to be navigating that, right? And I've seen it break people sometimes. Like surprisingly, like I knew the command chief of the Air National Guard. I haven't kept up with him lately, but for a while he was supposed to come on the podcast and he never did. He just kind of, his Facebook like went away, just kind of disappeared. And I was like, that's weird. He finally comes back on and he posts like basically that he doesn't know who he is anymore. And he's struggling with that. And I was like, holy cow, man. Like it sounded tough, man. Yeah. And it sounded like he just lost his whole community. I mean, this is a guy who led the entire National Guard. And in one moment, one day, that was it. It's over. It's behind you. You know, it's shocking how much they don't care once you're not a part of the service. Like, it's like they really don't care. Like, like once you're out, like you're nothing to them as an organization. And they cared so much while you were there about where you're at. Are you on time? Did you do this? Did you do that? And then to just be like, oh, I don't give a shit. Like in an instant, that's got to be kind of like jarring.
Oh, for sure. I mean, every single person I've talked to who's made the transition will tell you it's like, it's you are, then you aren't, and it's that simple. And one of my guests said something to me that I found so insightful that I say it all the time now, which is we forget quickly that we all work for an organization that's built under the assumption that you will get killed in combat. Like it's designed to go on without you. Period. Dot. End of story. No one's too important. And I think that we see that in the transition process where it's like, cool, you're gone. Billy Pugh is gone. We've got another captain. He's like, I was set to PCS to England. They canceled my orders. They got a replacement a week later. Like
they didn't miss a beat.
Didn't miss a beat. And it's supposed to work like it's supposed to be like that because we're supposed to be able to handle loss as an organization. The problem is that's pretty damaging to somebody who stakes a lot of value on what they've done in the service and has no additional foundational layer underneath the military. Because if you do, that rug pull is much less impactful than if your foundation is the military. Because then, just like your command chief friend, it's like one day you're the shit, and then the next day you're no one. And if you're not prepared for that, if you haven't thought about it, if you haven't prioritized things in your life in a way that isn't the most important thing that's happening to you, it's going to be a hard transition. And I don't want to sound like I'm poo-pooing being proud of the military or being proud of your service. That is certainly not, like, I loved what my time in the military. I miss it dearly. I'm glad that I'm still a military spouse because I still get to go on base and like just drink it in sometimes. I think what I'm really trying to say to people is everyone has to put value, everyone has to stake their identity on something. Everybody has something. And just understand whatever you stake your identity on has a massive impact on your mental health, your emotional well-being, and how you go about your life. And so if you're staking your value in something that has an expiration date, a definitive endpoint to it, there's going to be fallout at some point, and you need to be ready for that. And that's the big thing that I want to, that's the big thing that I want to tell people. Cause it's like, by all means, have so much passion in what you do in the military. But if your identity is the military, start really thinking about what life after the military is like, or dive in and take the time to realize that what you're really deriving purpose from probably isn't the military. It's things that you do in the military that certainly can be pursued after the military. Like, if you really love your unit or you really love the camaraderie of the people that you work with, like, it might not necessarily be the military that provides you value. You're just a very communal human being that really just needs a strong group of friends or to be like around all of the time. And like, if you word it as, I found passion with my military unit, you'll never find it again because they'll leave. Even if you went back, the unit's changed, whatever. But if it's just like, I just need a strong group of friends, buddy, you can find friends. You just have to go find them. And so so many people don't focus on the stuff that I'm talking about right now because you go to TAPS or most people on LinkedIn or at TAPS is like, get your resume squared away, hop on LinkedIn, apply to jobs, get paid, get your VA benefits taken care of, and don't get scammed. That's it. And then we don't talk about all of these other things that exist. And and these are the things that I truly believe are like we talked about, like, what, 22 veterans a day kill themselves. Like, this is the stuff that gets people, not do you get paid, do you not get paid? Because
it's things that you don't see coming. Like, if I didn't hear it from you and so many other people, I could see that just totally blindsiding me because you're like, I don't get it. I got the job. I got the money. Why? What is missing? What is going on? And I want to give a shout out to Mary Polanco. I think you should have her on if you haven't already. She wrote Your Final Debrief. She wrote an entire book about her experience with transition. And she was a speaker before that, so I was really familiar with her. She came on HeroFront. I haven't released the episode yet, but it was really listening to her.
Yeah.
and then reading her book, that really has mentally got me ready for that part that you just mentioned.
That's awesome. And what have you, besides talking to Mary and reading her book, how do you think that HeroFront has prepared you for this next chapter of your life?
Wow. I would say a byproduct of podcasting is networking.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the cheat code of networking. And, when your whole world is the military,
Mm-hmm.
you don't even, I think you mentioned it, you didn't even know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I found out I should do public relations. I didn't even know I didn't know what to call it. Like I had to do a shitload of research
Mm-hmm.
to be like, what am I doing on the outside? Like, what is that even called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so talking to all these people, man, it's really opened my mind to like it's really filled in a lot of those gaps. A lot of people I talk to are veterans that, they're not serving currently, or I talk to spouses, and they've just really helped me fill in those blanks. And the networking, the people that they've put me in touch with are unprecedented. So
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tested that. Hey, do all these people that I know and this huge following I have online, will that help me get a job? I can't tell you yes or no yet. But it definitely couldn't hurt.
No.
I show my character through my posts, my talks. I lift others up. I've made friends with people I had no business talking to, yet I'm texting them. I can't see how that wouldn't help me.
Of course.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Yeah, no, I think that the cheat code of networking is a great way to describe it, and it certainly will help you. I think that you're doing the right thing by curating a network, and the cool part, the thing that I will highlight to you as encouragement is you've already built something here that is independent of the military. And so with this podcast, like it's something you do while you're in the military for sure, but it's also like Josh's thing. And you're already experiencing deriving value and purpose from something that's not necessarily, it's definitely not paying your bills.
It's cost me a lot of money.
Yeah. And it's something that is like wholly separate from your work.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest thing that I would say to you is if you get into a role, whatever role you get into when you get out, if you're kind of like, this isn't as fulfilling as what I had when I was in the military, just think back to what you were doing in the podcasting world when you were in the military, and just remember, like, you found value from things that weren't your job before, and you certainly can and certainly will do it again.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that I think gets a lot of people down more than anything else, is like, oh, my job kind of sucks. Like, it's gonna suck. Like, you're gonna learn, everyone who gets out of the military is gonna suck at their job, unless, like, the only guys who don't suck are like the NSA hackers, because they literally just get out and just go hack for somebody else. Like, but for like most of us in the military, we're just used to so many things being just so, that there's gonna be some friction and there's gonna be some growth. And so most of us are gonna, in our first year, go, do I suck at this? Like, I think I might suck at this job.
Right.
And you don't. You're just learning again. And your job isn't what makes you awesome. There's so many things in this world that make you awesome other than your job. And none of those other things went away when you left the military. You're still the same person. You're still the same really cool human being. You just don't have a uniform on anymore. You just need to find new outlets to express that awesomeness. And it certainly does not have to come from your job.
Have you ever heard that Simon Sinek story? It's in Leaders Eat Last, about the styrofoam cup and like the CEO. Have you ever heard that?
A long time ago, but refresh me on it.
So essentially it's about your ego and identity attached to a position, and how there was this CEO who was basically treated like royalty. He
Mm-hmm.
went to this conference to be a keynote speaker. I mean, he had the red carpet, he had
Mm-hmm.
this nice ceramic mug, and everything was handled for him. All he had to do was go on the stage and speak, but everything else was done for him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was his last year in the spot. A year later, he's going back to speak at it again, just in a different capacity. He's no longer holding that position, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody gave a shit about getting him there. About all the niceties didn't
Yeah.
exist. Like
Yeah.
they gave him they said, "Oh, you want a coffee? There's some styrofoam cups over there."
Mm-hmm.
And he brought it up on stage in his talk. Like, wow, that was very humbling. Like, it was a position. It was just a position. It wasn't me. It wasn't something
Mm-hmm.
unique I was doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
literally the title and the position. And as soon as I left, someone else stepped right into that position.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I deserve now, all we really deserve is the styrofoam cup. That other thing was made up. Like
Yeah.
that's a made up title. It's not me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just a really enlightening story in that book.
Yeah, it's a very true statement, and it's unfortunately something that a lot of people don't grapple with, because viewing it that way is really scary. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because then you have to look at yourself and go like, am I getting am I pulling too much value from this thing? Oh, I am. Okay, well, what else am I going to have to, where else can I find this?
Yeah.
And it might lead you down a path that's hard to come to grips with. And I just think that people really struggle with that.
Yeah, man, they probably struggle. Those people that are locked in that position and thinking that they were the special one that brought it to the next level. Maybe they were, but when you see that next person come in
Mm-hmm.
and they don't miss a beat, that's got to sting a
Mm-hmm.
little.
Yeah.
You
For
know,
sure. Like there's a, I don't know if you're a religious guy. I am.
I am
And
too.
there's this really awesome verse in the Bible in Ecclesiastes, which Ecclesiastes is a book written by a guy called Solomon, who was, from a biblical perspective, like smartest dude ever. If you're not a Christian and you read Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, lots of really good stuff are pulled from those books. But there's one verse that really sticks out that reminds me of that, where he's basically like, I don't even understand what the point of making money is, because I'm going to die and somebody who doesn't deserve it is going to get all of it, and they didn't even have to work for it. So like, what's the point of doing all of this stuff?
Yeah.
And it really just like the story that you were talking about, it just really highlights this, like, things like wealth or things like your job position. Like, the second you're gone, someone else is going to get it. And
Yeah.
that is like,
It's a hard pill to swallow.
for
sometimes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that book, Your Final Debrief by
Mhm.
Mary Polanco, there's a part in there where she was a chief, and she was one of those kick-ass airmen who basically crushed it the whole time. Internally,
Yep.
she was struggling, and she neglected herself and her family.
Mm-hmm.
But career-wise, she was like all-star.
Yep.
And so she was a chief, and she just became a civilian, and like she didn't have her ID on her or something.
Mm-hmm.
Again, she's like this renowned chief, the day before, literally the day before,
Yeah.
but she didn't have her ID. And she goes to the gate, and they're like, basically like, go over there and get a pass. And she's like, wait, what? Like, the way they approached her, the way they just immediately told her to get a pass, and not like, yes, chief, I'll do that. She was like, man, that was a slice of humble pie. Like, yeah,
For sure.
she was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, but I'm chief," but like, she didn't even really know what to say. And they're like, ma'am, you're retired. Like, you don't have your card. Go to the visitor center. She was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like,
That's-
literally the day before would have been a totally different reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that realization is so tough for a lot of people, and that's why you see so many folks who they still reminisce about like the days that they were in or those things, because they never found a way to move on or found a source of purpose that exists in the current chapter of their life. Like, they still need some link back to the last chapter of their life to like keep them going, or to basically be like, this is why it's worth it. And
those people are what are a reason I stayed in.
mm,
Because like, yeah, I knew a bunch of people that, I mean, they got kicked out. Like they got in trouble,
mhm,
and for years, you know,
mhm,
their profile picture would be them in blues. I'm like, bro, like you got kicked out. You were in for 2 years. Like, but they couldn't let
mhm.
it go. And, you know, when I saw that, I was like, whoa, there's something to that, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons I stuck around. And I want to close this out because I was like, I don't know what they're going through or why they're holding on to that, but like, I don't want to feel that way. That looks tough.
Yeah, it's definitely strange. And dealing with all of these things is certainly it's a mental and emotional battle. That's the thing that I think is the most important piece of this transition. The cool part about what you're doing with, and this is like for everyone, if you're a Hero Front listener or if you're Josh and you're like, man, that's a lot of like stuff about dealing with emotions and things like that. The purpose of Hero Front is dealing with mental health and overcoming like suicidal ideations or overcoming these mental blocks. There is no difference between that in those stories and what you might face when you get out of the military. It's at the base, your identity has been shaken. There is a fallout from that thing, and you have to make small incremental steps to build momentum to improve. Like it's the same thing. And I think too many people when they get out of the military, they leave and then they immediately go like, nothing that I learned in the military applies anymore. And either you think that because you show up to a job and everything is different, or someone told you shit's different out here. Nothing that you know applies anymore. And so everyone just throws it out. And it's like the only thing that's changed is the context. The all of the skills, all of your ability to handle stress, your ability to work through ambiguity, your ability to produce when people are looking for like results, like all of these things that people have learned in the military, every single last one of them applies. They're going to make you an amazing citizen in the United States. They're going to make you a great husband, wife, like father, mother, employee, business owner, like all of these things. They're going to make you amazing at that. Just the context is a little bit different, and the context just takes a little bit of adjustment. But you have all the tools that you need to succeed. You're probably like, I hang out with mostly veterans at my job because I like them better, and like not bashing any of my like civilian coworkers. A lot of them are very smart. The veterans that I hang out with, we know we deal with things just differently because of what we've gone through. We all vibe on a level that I have yet to find with people that I work with or interact with outside of the military. Like shit just clicks and it's nice. And so having that vet community is great, but like just remember the context is going to change, but everything that you have and are bringing with you in this next part of your journey of life, it all applies and it's great. And you're ready for it. It just might not feel like it at the moment, but you are.
So I got a question for you on transitioning.
Of course.
So, man, I'm tripping over like my first job. Like I'm tripping. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to just fucking crush. Like I wanted to be like I'm leading the USO marketing or something. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it all figured out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to merge it with my skill bridge, and I'm trying to secure this job like way ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should I really be tripping this much over this first job, or is that like ridiculous?
No, I think, well, statistically, you're more likely to leave your first job in a year than you are to stay in it. That's just what it is for veterans at this point. Not saying you will or you won't.
You?
I have not left yet, but
so you found a job worth staying for. You're still doing it.
My job affords me a lot of benefits that are great for reasons other than my job. If
Mhm.
I looked at my life as exclusively employment, I would have left the job that I'm currently in by now, for sure. Like that's a no-brainer.
It
But
has quality of life benefits for you.
yes,
Mm.
it is beneficial for the holistic me more so than I love the work that I'm doing right now. That's the and I can and I would have me coming right out of the military, I would have been Audi 5000 on this bitch like so fast. But going back to what I was talking about with like what really does give me value, I value community, I value helping people, and I value being a good husband and hopefully a good father. And so the remote aspect of my work allows me to always be able to help my wife around the house. And I'm going to be here. Like I get 8 weeks of paternity leave, which I'm very thankful for
Wow,
that Amazon
that's really
provides
good.
that. It's great.
Yeah.
But additionally, I'm going to be here the entire time my wife
Mhm.
is on her maternity leave. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
The I get paid enough that I'm able to provide for my family, and the work is not so intense that I'm able to volunteer in my church. I'm able to spend time with the community my wife and I have here in California. So like it is great for every reason other than the work. And so the work is fine because of that. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's allowed you to find purpose everywhere else. You kind of divvied
exactly.
out. You divvied out
Mhm.
all the things that you love and that you would like in your life, and you found other homes for them.
Yep. And the growth was realizing that in the military, all of those things that I just mentioned existed in the military. So like my community was the military. My friends were in the military. The stuff that I did when I was not out, like when I was gaming with people, I was gaming with military people. When I was going out, I was going out with military people. When I was doing my side projects, they were military. Like I was the CGOC guy. That's a military club. Like all of those things were tied up in the military, and my simplistic view of it getting out of the military was, oh, I need a job that gives me all these things because the
Mhm.
military gave these things. But it's
That's
like
that's
the
what I'm
military,
that's what I'm trying to do with
yeah,
these
but
people I'm talking to at like Black Rifle and USO
yeah,
and all these military affiliated
hmm
companies that I was trying to like get ahead of because I have that exact worry.
yeah, and the it's not bad to go for those jobs. Like I think you would be amazing at those jobs with these military affiliated companies, and I wish you all the best. The thing to think about though is your job in the military wasn't PR, your job was public health.
Mhm.
And like just like my job, my job wasn't military. My job was cyber warfare officer. And I just happened to the military organization, the military is this like monolith of purpose, while post military is this like mosaic where you get to place all of the pieces, and all of the pieces don't have to be the same. And I think that getting a job that accomplishes all of those goals, it exists. Certainly can, and there's definitely people who do it, and more power to them, but it doesn't have to. And I think that the biggest thing is shoot for the stars with your job, but if you don't find a job that satisfies all of those requirements that you want to have, it might just not be the right job. You can go find another one. That's completely okay. But B, maybe try and just like maybe your job's great and you just need to go work at the local VFW or something like that. And like your job doesn't have to be this catch-all anymore. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And I would love, just give yourself enough grace for it not to have to fulfill all of the things that you're looking for it to fulfill. It can, it doesn't have to anymore. It doesn't have to be this catch-all that the military was for you in the last chapter of your life. That's the biggest thing that I'll say about that.
All right, Billy, what advice would you give yourself? You know, you're about to embark on this civilian life. If you could send a message to that version of Billy at that time in his life, a piece of advice, if you would, what would you say to him?
Yeah, I would be quick because I don't think I would listen to me if I like.
Let's say you didn't even know it was you.
Yeah, if
It's
I didn't
just
know,
someone
if I didn't know it was me.
that you should trust, and this is the advice they're giving you.
Yep. I would say there's three things that I would say to myself. The first is what we've already talked about, which is your job doesn't have to provide all of the purpose in your life. The second is make sure that you are evaluating your life and your life decisions and your employment decisions at a holistic level. The best example that I'll give is pilots who get out of the Air Force because they're away from their family a lot and they don't like that. And then they go work for Delta and then they're gone all the time from their family. Like, that wasn't a good move. You just got out because you wanted to fly for Delta. You weren't actually evaluating all of the holistic life. Like, you weren't looking at all the pieces. So yeah, so you don't need to derive purpose from your job. Make sure that you're evaluating your decisions from a holistic level, not just like in these silos. And then finally, talk to as many people as you possibly can find, and talk to people that are outside of the military, talk to people that are veteran adjacent, challenge your assumptions. And the veteran community, everyone will talk to you if you reach out in a respectful manner. Like, I have yet to be snubbed by somebody who is a vet when I reach out and ask for advice, assistance, or an opinion. And so, like, reach out and talk to people, man. Do not do this alone. There's so much knowledge out there that exists, and you just need to go find it. And so those are the big ones. Talk to people. Your job doesn't have to provide value, and
consider all areas of your life.
Consider all areas of your life when you're making decisions.
Which includes talking to your family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a big one.
Like, one of my things is, like, my wife, you know, I've dragged her around everywhere during my career. She wants to be closer to home. She wants to be in the Kansas City metropolitan area. And I love Missouri. I don't have a problem with that. But, you know, had I just said the hell with that, you know, I'm going to Texas. Like, that's not going to work.
No.
Like, she might not even go. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I think communicating with your family would be part of that. Part of that advice that you had.
100%. Like, don't look for jobs that aren't in the KC area. Like, maybe Black Rifle hits you up and goes, yo, have we got a job in San Antonio, Texas for you? Like, it's not that, like, that would be cool to find out about, but my recommendation to people is, like, don't even look, because you don't want to, like, if you've already identified that I have to live in X area because of my spouse, like, if that's like no fail criteria, don't even look elsewhere, because what are you going to do? Go up to your wife and be like, I know you don't want to go outside of this, but let me tell you about this job. And then it's like, oh, cool, you're just prioritizing the job over your family. And, like, that's what it's going to seem like. And so, like, those are, and I don't think people do a good job of establishing that no fail criteria that exists because of constraints that exist outside of their, like, outside of just work. Because you're like, ooh, this job seems shiny and cool. Ooh, I could do this. Ooh, I could do that. Like, you could, but those things generally taken into like, my dream job's being a national park ranger. don't live near national parks. And that wouldn't work very well if with my wife being in the military and she wants to go to 20 years. So like a lot of my career decisions were made as a supporter to that dream.
Right.
So I can't go be can't go be a park ranger while I'm PCSing every 3 years. So,
right.
Yeah.
One day.
Exactly.
So emotionally, what you went through was very traumatic. Your dream ripped out from under you in an instant,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to pivot and find yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give that person emotionally?
Don't be afraid to go to therapy. Talking through what you're feeling is a powerful tool for recovery, but also for understanding, because it's worth knowing what's happening under the hood of your mind. I think too many people are just slaves to their emotions because they never understand what's happening. And I think the biggest thing is going back to what we've already talked about, which is like, don't always be aware of what you're emotionally staking your value in life. And so take that inventory. So if something happens to one of those core components of your life, you know that it's going to have some kind of cascading effect, or you're ready for that, so that when you get angry, you get sad, you get depressed, whatever it is, you know where it's coming from. Because if you can define where the negative emotion is coming from, then you know where the source is, and you know that you can plug the source or fix it or something. If you don't take the time to identify the source, then you're just sad forever, I guess. And
Right.
once you establish that you're just going to be sad forever, then the alternative of suicide starts to look a lot more enticing, because it's like quick is better than long in that very simple way of looking at things. And that's very sad, because
I mean, you could have just explained why a lot of people chose that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just exactly what you said.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest piece of emotional advice is the emotions you're feeling are coming from somewhere. Identify them, and then you can fix them. And when you fix them, you won't feel that way anymore. And that means that the negative emotional spiral that you're going through is temporary. It's not forever. You can move through it if you know where it's coming from. And that is the biggest thing that I wish someone would have told me early, because it took a lot more time figuring that out than I would have liked in my journey. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, Billy, about to wrap this up, my man.
Yeah, dude.
We've been going for
I
a
know.
while.
I like it. I love it. It's great.
But when you hit that, you start to be like, that fatigue
For
starts
sure.
to kick in.
Yeah, you're like, my brain hurts. I mean, you've done 3 of these, so like I get it.
Yeah.
So
I took today off to catch up with people I wanted to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids ended up being here today because there's a freaking crazy storm.
I
So
heard.
Of course and so the day I chose to do this, like, not only was I talk to all these people today, but my kids were just busting in the room screaming. Like, I was like, what are the chances of that?
Yep.
But yeah, I had 3 podcasts today, and they've all been wonderful. And I just want to give you a shout out, Billy, just from I don't know if I would have had the strength to keep going after what you went through.
I appreciate that.
Like, that takes an incredible, especially at the Air Force Academy. I mean, the people who are going to be commanders one day, that's their career path. The people that are going to run the Air Force. And so to be on such a strong, intense path to even reach, I don't know if most people could get to where you're at now, to, this self-aware Billy who has found purpose in other places, who's divvied them out. He's still living through purpose. and you're still helping people like crazy.
Trying.
You know, I just think that's phenomenal, man. I think you're an incredible person. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see, you know, where you land, where this goes, because I feel like it's only up from here.
I mean, I can't wait to see where you land. That's way more interesting to me. Like I'm so excited about that, Josh. You can't even begin to understand. And the only thing I appreciate you with all of your kind words. The only thing I'll say is, as a guy who now has brain damage, if I can do it, anyone out there listening can do it too. So that's what I'll leave everybody with on that. But for you, I am so incredibly grateful of what you've done with your podcast. I think that the conversations that you're willing to have with people on these different, just truly traumatic moments in their life and them overcoming it is amazing. And as you start moving into this next chapter, I'm really excited to see where you take HeroFront, what's next for you in that specific regard. I think you're just going to do amazing things, man. And I really appreciate you coming and having this conversation with me. It's been really amazing, and I love learning from you. And it's been really cool to dive further into someone whose show I really love listening to.
Thanks, Billy. We got a lot in common, man. I mean, we're pretty niche.
Yeah,
like
100%.
We're both veterans. We're both passionate about things. We're both podcasters.
Gamers.
We're both gamers. we're about to be both fathers.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what I love about meeting people like you that I have so much in common with is that like now we have like a friend forever, right?
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter like if it's a month from now or a year from now. Like, we'll always be connected from this point. And I love lifting up other people. Like, I love meeting people and helping each other reach the next level. It's a beautiful thing. It's something I'm so thankful for with the veteran community, that I have that on the other end. I at least know I have that. I have that community waiting for me.
I love it. Yes, you really do. And I'm excited to see where you go. And if you ever need anything, you know you got someone to reach out to for sure. But that's the end of the episode. Josh, thank you again for coming on, for being vulnerable, for really coming on to tell your story in a real way. I know that all the listeners on the Post Military Podcast really appreciate it. And for all of you out there who are HeroFront listeners, thanks for sticking around, for hanging out with me, learning about me. For everybody that is a post-military podcast regular and you're coming to the show from my end, Josh White, HeroFront Podcast, all of his stuff will be in the links in the description below our beautiful faces. So if you want to check him out, please head down there. And for all of you HeroFront folks, me, Billy, Post-Military Podcast, I put out content on stories of people who've transitioned out of the military. And if you head over to YouTube, I've got some other stuff over there too that definitely worth checking out. My brother-in-law and I put together a whole course on our thoughts on looking for work and employment as you're preparing for your transition. So that might be helpful to you. But thank you all for being here. To both audiences, you all are the reason we both do this. We're so incredibly grateful for your support, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Post-Military Podcast and or the HeroFront Podcast. We'll talk to you later.
I'll end with my what I always say at the end.
Do it. Hit me with it.
This was the hero's journey of Billy Pugh.
Ooh, I love that. And this has been an episode of the Post-Military Podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.